The hum of the overhead lights was the only thing that could be heard as I sat in the darkened operations room. The room was cool, the kind of sterile temperature meant to keep you alert but also disorienting. The glow from the screen illuminated my face, casting shadows over my weary eyes. I'd been staring at the same set of coordinates for the last 20 minutes, not fully comprehending the enormity of what I was about to be asked to do. Division X wasn't an ordinary division of the CIA. No one outside of a handful of people even knew it existed. We operated in the grayest of areas, often tasked with the jobs that the rest of the agency would rather forget. I had been a part of this secretive branch for over 5 years, executing covert operations that had kept me away from home for months at a time. But this mission, the one that had been handed to me, was different. The briefing document was simple, straightforward, almost too simple. It contained nothing more than a location and a cryptic message. Retrieve the vessel, bring it back, do not ask questions. I had learned long ago that when Division X tells you not to ask questions, you don't ask questions. But it was impossible not to wonder, what was this vessel, and why were they sending me alone? As I prepared for the mission, an encrypted message flashed across my terminal, this one from my superior, Agent Martinez. His words were brief and matter-of-fact. This is your final mission. Get in, get out, and don't come back until you've completed it. Remember, trust no one, and don't, under any circumstances, engage with the locals. His tone was firm. There was something in his voice that made me feel as if I were being sent into something far worse than a routine operation. But I had no choice. Division X didn't give you a choice. I packed my gear, a standard issue tactical kit, plus a small communication device and a laptop to log my findings. I wasn't told much more than the basics. The location was a remote research facility in Eastern Europe, deep in the Carpathian Mountains. It had been abandoned years ago, but I was to go in, retrieve the vessel, and return. Simple enough. The chopper ride over was uneventful. The fog that enveloped the mountains only seemed to deepen the unease in my gut. As we neared the drop-off point, the pilot gave me a terse nod, and I jumped from the helicopter, the cold air biting at my skin. The snow crunched beneath my boots as I made my way toward the entrance of the facility. From a distance it looked abandoned, an industrial complex, swallowed by time and nature. The wind moaned through the rusted pipes and broken windows. But there was something else in the air, something that I couldn't place. It felt like I was walking into a tomb. The facility loomed before me, dark and imposing. The snow had started to fall heavily, coating the buildings in a blanket of white, but the wind had picked up, making the air feel even colder. I had to find a way in. I circled the perimeter, looking for an entry point. The front gate was a heavy, rusted metal structure, the locks long since broken. A few tools from my kit and the gate fell open with a loud creak, protesting its forced entry. Inside, the facility was eerily quiet, save for the occasional gust of wind rattling through the broken windows. The structure was massive, made of steel and concrete, and it looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. The inside was just as derelict as the outside. Rusted equipment lay scattered across the floors, old desks, papers, and files that had long since been buried in dust. The air inside smelled stale, almost metallic, like something had been left to rot. I moved cautiously through the hallways, every step echoing in the stillness. The faint hum of the facility's old ventilation system was the only sound I could hear. As I continued, I found signs of something unsettling. A series of sealed doors marked classified. Every room I passed felt like it held secrets buried deep within its walls, but I had no time to investigate. I checked the facility's map and found the lab where the vessel was supposedly housed. It was deep in the heart of the building, far from the entry points, and by the looks of it, I'd need to go through several levels of security to get there. Don't engage with the locals. Agent Martinez's words echoed in my mind as I moved forward. I wasn't alone. The first sign of life came when I entered a long hallway and noticed movement in the shadows. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. A figure, gaunt and pale, flitted past a doorframe. I wasn't sure if it was a person or something else. It didn't make sense. The facility was supposed to be abandoned. I pulled my weapon from its holster, my pulse quickening. I wasn't sure if I should confront whoever or whatever was here or if I should continue on, but something in the back of my mind told me I had no choice. I moved cautiously toward the source of the movement. The floor creaked beneath my boots, the sound sharp and jarring in the quiet of the building. The air was thick, heavy with the kind of silence that made your skin crawl. As I turned a corner, I found myself face to face with a door marked Laboratory 3. My heart raced as I pulled at the handle, the cold metal sending a shock through my hand. The door swung open with a creak. Inside, a strange, pulsing light filled the room. There, sitting in the center of the lab, was the vessel. It was encased in a glass cylinder, glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. The air around it seemed to vibrate, as if it were alive, waiting. The vessel was perfectly still, but I could feel something pressing against me from the inside. A presence, something watching me. I stepped closer, my breath catching in my throat. The glass was cold to the touch, but my fingers lingered there, drawn to it, as if it were calling me. It felt like the world outside this room had disappeared, leaving only me and the vessel. Suddenly, I heard a low, guttural sound behind me. A voice perhaps. No, a whisper. A voice calling my name. I turned around quickly, my weapon raised, but no one was there. It was then that I realized this place wasn't abandoned, and I wasn't alone. I had found the vessel, but at what cost? The moment my fingers had brushed against the glass, a low hum filled the room, followed by whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The walls felt as if they were closing in around me, the temperature in the room plummeting. I could see my breath in the air, thick and visible. The whispers grew louder, now filled with distorted voices, angry, desperate. Get out. I staggered backward, feeling the weight of the room pressing against me. The vessel, its surface undulating like it was alive, seemed to pulse with every breath I took. The whispers became clearer, voices intertwined with one another, pleading, begging. And then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The room fell silent. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. My mind was racing, trying to process what had just happened. I had come here to retrieve a weapon, but this was no weapon. This was something far more dangerous, something that shouldn't exist. The encrypted files I'd read before the mission were vague, but now I understood. The vessel wasn't a weapon, it was a containment, and I was certain now that whatever was inside that glass cylinder was far from human. I stood frozen in front of the vessel, my heartbeat reverberating in my chest, a cacophony of terror rising in my ears. The whispers had stopped, but the silence that followed was deafening. I couldn't look away from the glass cylinder, the eerie glow pulsing within, casting strange shadows across the room. The air felt thick with dread. I had never seen anything like it before. The vessel was unlike any weapon or scientific project I had encountered during my years in Division X. It wasn't just a piece of technology, it was something alive, something that shouldn't have been allowed to exist. The whispers had come from the vessel itself, that much I was sure of. But what were they? Voices? Or echoes of something far worse, trapped within? I stepped back, my instincts screaming at me to get out, to leave before something worse happened. But I couldn't just walk away. I had a mission, and Division X didn't take kindly to failure. With trembling hands, I accessed the terminal near the wall. The lights above flickered in protest, as if the system itself was reluctant to reveal its secrets. I typed in the codes I had been given, hoping to retrieve any information about the project, about Project Echoel, the name that had occasionally flashed across encrypted files in the briefing documents. The screen came to life, casting a pale blue light that mixed with the glow from the vessel. It was filled with cryptic data, lines of code, medical reports, classified documentation. But then, there was something that caught my eye. Subject 23. I clicked the file open. Subject 23 was the last human subject used in the experiments conducted in this facility, the file revealed. The reports were incomplete, the pages disjointed and barely legible, as if someone had tried to scrub the evidence clean, but what I could make out made my stomach turn. They had been testing a new method of memory extraction and consciousness manipulation. Subjects were subjected to extreme mental and physical trauma in an effort to create a kind of perfect soldier, a being capable of accessing and manipulating memories at will. But the experiments had gone horribly wrong. Subject 23 was different. Unlike the others, who had either died or gone insane, Subject 23 had survived. I scrolled further, my pulse quickening. The file ended abruptly, but the data was enough to make me understand. Subject 23 wasn't just a survivor, they had become something else entirely. The vessel wasn't just a containment unit, it was a prison. It was designed to hold something far older, far darker than any weapon or human, and Subject 23 had been trapped inside it. My breath caught in my throat. The whispers had stopped, but the air in the room grew heavier. The shadows in the corners of the lab seemed to deepen, twisting as though something was moving just beyond my sight. A sound, a soft click, broke the silence. I turned toward the door. Something was there, someone. I wasn't alone. I didn't wait to see what was coming through the door. I bolted. I rushed toward the hallway, my heart hammering in my chest, my feet pounding the cold, cracked floor. But as I reached the door, I felt the weight of something pressing against my chest, something more than fear. It was as though the very building itself was pulling me back, urging me to return to that terrible lab. The whispers returned, louder this time, clearer. They were no longer in the walls or the shadows, they were inside my head. You're not supposed to leave, you're not supposed to know. I gritted my teeth and shoved the door open. The cold air outside stung my face, but I didn't stop. I ran down the corridor, my mind racing as fast as my legs. I needed to get out. I needed to... The hallway twisted. No, that wasn't right. I looked around. The hallway I had just run through was no longer there. Instead, I was standing in front of a different door, one I hadn't seen before. I blinked in confusion, my breath shallow, my pulse thumping in my ears. I turned around, but the corridor I had been running down had vanished completely, replaced by an endless stretch of rooms and locked doors. I was trapped. I looked back at the new door, the one I hadn't seen before. A nameplate hung crookedly from it, Laboratory 4. I didn't want to open it. I knew something was wrong. Something had shifted. I had no idea how, but the walls were closing in. The air was thick with something unseen, and the whispers were growing louder. Get in. You have to go in. You have to understand. I didn't know who or what was whispering to me, but I could feel it now. It wasn't just in my mind. It was in the walls. It was in the building itself. I approached the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. There was no turning back now. The door opened with a soft groan, revealing a small, dimly lit room. The walls were lined with equipment, old computers, medical devices, and other instruments I didn't recognize. But the most striking feature was the large, reinforced glass tank in the center of the room. Inside the tank, a figure floated, suspended in what appeared to be a thick, viscous fluid. I couldn't see much of the figure, but the outline was clear enough. It was humanoid in shape, but there was something unnatural about it. The whispers began again, but this time they weren't in my head. They came from the tank, from the figure inside. You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come. The voice was distorted, a chorus of many, blending into one. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. The data from the previous room had given me only a small part of the picture. Now, I understood what had happened here. This was no ordinary experiment. This was something far darker. Subject 23 hadn't just been experimented on. They had become part of something else. They had become a vessel, a conduit, trapped inside this glass prison, along with the entity that now shared its mind. And now, the entity was calling to me. The whispers were not just a warning, they were a summons. I tried to turn and run, but the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening clang. The walls groaned as if the entire building was alive, shifting and tightening around me. The whispers grew louder. I could feel the presence pressing against me, suffocating me, dragging me toward the tank. The glass began to crack, a faint spiderweb of fractures appearing on its surface. Something inside, the thing trapped within Subject 23, was waking up. You will never leave. You will never escape. The voice was no longer distant. It was inside me, inside my very thoughts. The entity within the vessel, the one that had been contained for so long, was trying to break free, and I was the key. The cracking of the glass intensified, a loud, sickening crunch filling the room as the vessel began to crack open. I was paralyzed. My mind screamed for me to leave, to escape while I still had the chance, but my body wouldn't move. I was frozen. The figure inside the tank began to shift, its form becoming clearer. The fluid that had once kept it suspended began to drain away, pooling on the floor, leaving behind a grotesque, skeletal creature, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It wasn't human. It never had been. It was something older, something darker than anything the world had ever known. The whispers merged into one, now loud and commanding. "Help us, free us, we will give you everything." I had no choice. The door was gone. The only way out was through the thing inside the tank. The creature in the tank stirred, its skeletal frame creaking as it stretched and flexed. It was as if it were testing its newfound freedom. Its eyes, glowing a faint blue, locked onto mine, and a chill ran through my body. "You will help us, or we will make you." The voice echoed in my head, now so powerful that it felt like a physical blow. My mind was no longer my own. It was being invaded, the thoughts of the creature slipping into my consciousness like cold fingers. I tried to block it out, to focus, but it was too late. The vessel had already marked me. I could feel it. The connection had been made. I backed away slowly, my mind screaming at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. It was as if the air itself was thickened with something dark, something ancient that held me in place. "You are not leaving, not until it is done." The words reverberated inside me, rattling the very core of my being. My hands shook uncontrollably, and for a moment, I thought I might collapse. But then the creature's form began to change. The skeletal structure melted away, replaced by something far more disturbing. It was humanoid now, but its skin was translucent, pulled taut over bones that were too thin, too sharp. Its limbs were elongated, its fingers tapering into claws, but what stood out the most were its eyes, those unblinking, glowing blue eyes that seemed to pierce right through me, as if they could see every dark thought I'd ever had. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The creature didn't move, but the pressure inside the room intensified. I felt my heart racing, my pulse quickening as it seemed to draw closer. I was trapped. And then, just as suddenly as the pressure had increased, the room went silent. The creature stood motionless, watching me, its expression unreadable. The glowing blue light from its eyes flickered slightly, almost like it was studying me. The whispers grew quiet. The room felt expectant, as if it were waiting for me to make a decision. The vessel. The words flashed in my mind again, clearer this time. It was never meant for you. It was meant for the others. The others. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just an experiment, it was an invasion. The people who had come here before me, every single one of them, they were part of the vessel. The process wasn't just about using their bodies, it was about merging their souls, their minds, with whatever this thing was. The creature in the tank had taken parts of them, and now it was ready for more. And I was next. I turned toward the door, my legs finally responding, but it was already too late. It had locked behind me. I tried to pry it open, but it wouldn't budge. The walls began to hum with that low, ominous energy again, and I could hear the faint whispering of hundreds of voices mingling together. "Help us. You have to help us." My mind was spinning, my vision blurring at the edges. The air grew even thicker, like I was breathing through mud. I wasn't just trapped in this room with the creature, I was trapped inside my own head. "You'll help us, or you'll join us." The creature stepped closer, its long, clawed fingers reaching for me, but just before it touched me, it stopped, its head tilted like a predator sizing up its prey. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened with panic. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. And then, in an instant, the creature was no longer standing in front of me, it was inside me. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. The world around me spun wildly as I felt an overwhelming presence inside my mind, its thoughts, its desires, flooding my consciousness. "We are one now. You will help us complete this cycle." The voice had no body, no source. It was everywhere. It was me. I could feel its memories, strange, ancient images that burned like fire in my mind. I saw things, places, events that could not possibly belong to any human being. Cities, ages, civilizations, all long dead and buried in the mists of time. I saw the beginning of everything, and then the horror that had followed. I saw them, a race of beings once powerful, once gods in their own right. They had walked the earth long before humanity had risen, and they had manipulated everything from time to biology to make themselves the perfect masters of reality. But they had been sealed away, trapped beneath the earth, their bodies destroyed, but their essence, their consciousness locked in this vessel. And now I was their vessel. I could feel it taking over bit by bit. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. There were other thoughts, other voices speaking through me. The walls of the room closed in on me, and the very air felt alive, buzzing with dark energy. I stumbled toward the tank, my hand moving without my permission, reaching for the controls. My fingers pressed the buttons, one after the other. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't control it. And then the glass shattered. A flood of dark liquid poured from the tank, and the creature, no, it wasn't a creature anymore, emerged. It was fully formed now, its body shifting like liquid, like shadows in the dim light. It was alive, and it was free. It turned its gaze back to me, and in that moment, I knew that it had won. I had helped it. The whispers in my head turned to laughter, deep, ancient laughter that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. The walls seemed to warp around me as the entity moved toward me. You are ours now. I don't know how long it's been. Minutes, hours, days. Time no longer exists the way it used to. The world has fractured around me as I exist in a space between consciousness and madness. I've lost control of my body. I am not the same person who came into this place. The creature, the thing that was once inside the vessel, is inside me now too. It's in my mind, in my soul, and it won't leave. I can feel it in every fiber of my being, an endless hunger. The whispers are constant. It tells me everything and nothing at all. The memories of the others, those who were absorbed before me, swirl within my thoughts. I hear their voices, feel their agony, their final screams of realization as they too were consumed. I can still hear it in the distance. The others, they are calling to me. I am not the only one trapped in this place, but I am the last one who has been chosen to complete the cycle. I am not the last one to be taken. There will be others, but I will not warn them. I cannot, because now, like them, I am one with the darkness. I can hear the next victim outside the door, and I know they are coming. I am the last, the final witness, the last vessel, and the echoes of my screams will last forever. I woke to the sound of my own breath. It was shallow, unsteady, and yet not my own. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere inside me, but it wasn't my body that exhaled. The air was thick with the presence of something ancient and powerful, a force that stirred within me like an infectious pulse. I could feel it now, its hunger, its craving for more. We are you. The voice wasn't just in my head anymore. It was in my chest, in my bones, in my blood. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My mouth moved, but only the echo of its laughter filled the space inside my skull. I looked down at my hands, but they didn't feel like my own. My fingers, once steady and controlled, now twitched and spasmed as if they were unfamiliar to me. My skin felt stretched, too tight. I could feel something crawling beneath it, something otherworldly. They will come, and you will join them. I stumbled to my feet, my legs weak and uncoordinated. The walls around me seemed to pulse, undulating like they were breathing. The building, the entire facility, was no longer a physical space. It was a living thing, wrapped in the same dark energy that had taken root inside me. I could hear them now, the other voices, the other vessels. They had been here before me, swallowed whole by this place, and now their echoes reverberated in the dark corners of my mind. I felt their desperation, their fear, as if their very souls were still trapped within these walls. But I was no longer one of them. I was part of it. The entity, the ancient force that had been trapped here for so long, and now I would become the one who would lead the others into the same fate I had suffered. The whispers were urging me forward, guiding me to the door, to the next step in the cycle. But I hesitated. There was a small, fading part of me, some fragment of my old self that wanted to fight, to resist, to scream and claw my way out of this nightmare. But it was useless. The entity was in control now, and it was getting stronger. I could feel its will coursing through me, weaving itself into the very fabric of my being. I was no longer just a vessel. I was the vessel. You will open the door. They are waiting. I could feel the other presence at the door. I could hear their heartbeats. I could taste their fear, their confusion. The next victim. They were about to walk into the same trap that I had. My hands moved on their own, gripping the cold metal handle of the door. The moment I touched it, the voices of the others in my mind grew louder, their cries rising like a chorus of souls, calling out to me. Please, don't do it. You can still stop it. You can still save yourself. But their pleas were meaningless now. They were gone. They had become part of the entity, just as I had. I was no longer a person. I was a gateway, a bridge between the living and the thing that had waited in the dark for centuries. The door creaked open. The hallway outside the lab was dark, the lights flickering in and out of existence. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and the palpable weight of something malevolent, something watching. I could feel it. The presence. It was everywhere, inside me, inside the walls, inside the very air I breathed. The new victim stood at the end of the hallway. They were young, too young to be here. They hadn't yet realized the horror that awaited them. Their footsteps echoed off the walls, but they didn't seem to hear it. They didn't know what was coming. It is time. I wanted to scream, to stop them, but I couldn't. The voice was not my own. It was a part of the entity that now inhabited me, guiding my every movement. I was a puppet, and it was the hand that pulled the strings. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be a part of this, but I couldn't stop. My body moved toward the new victim, and as I did, the whispers in my mind grew louder, more insistent. Do not fight it. Let us make them ours. You are the key. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I grasped the victim's arm. Their skin was warm against my touch, and for a brief moment I saw the terror in their eyes. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel the wrongness in the air. They struggled, tried to pull away, but I tightened my grip. I could hear their heart racing, feel their pulse throbbing beneath my fingers. And then I felt the shift. The moment they crossed the threshold into the room, I knew they were doomed. The transformation had already begun. The thing inside me was stirring, taking what it needed. It wasn't just taking my mind, it was feeding, growing stronger, and now it would take this new victim, this new body, to complete the cycle. I watched in silence as their eyes glazed over, their resistance fading. The whispers flooded their mind, just as they had flooded mine. Join us, become one with the vessel. And just like that, they were gone. Their body, once warm and full of life, now lay still, a mere shell, an empty vessel. But they weren't truly gone, not yet. Their soul would become part of the entity, just as mine had. Their mind would join the chorus, the ever-growing symphony of voices that reverberated in the dark corners of my consciousness. I felt it, their presence, their fear, their screams echoing in the void of the vessel. And then, in the silence that followed, I heard it. The entity's voice, louder than ever before, clearer than ever. Now you understand. Now you are one of us. There is no escaping. There is no running. The building, the world itself, is shifting. I can feel it warping around me. The walls are no longer solid. They breathe with the same rhythm as the thing inside me. The air hums with the presence of the entity, and I know now that it's not just here, in this facility. It's everywhere. It's already begun to spread. The whispers are endless. I hear the voices of the others, those who were taken before me, those who will be taken after me. The cycle will never end. It can't. The entity has no beginning, no end. It was here before humanity, and it will be here after. I feel my mind slipping away. It's not like I'm losing it, it's being replaced. Piece by piece, I am becoming the vessel. I no longer have control. I am not a person. I am a conduit, a bridge between worlds, between the living and the eternal darkness that waits. I can hear it now. It's calling, not just in my mind, but in the world outside. You are part of the vessel now, and soon they all will be. I can feel it pulling me into the void. The darkness is swallowing me whole, taking every memory, every shred of who I once was. The last remnants of my humanity are fading away. And then nothing.